Hey everyone, for a while I've been thinking about making a podcast about power armor, so I figured I'd maybe try and start a first episode and see how this goes. Because, well, I can talk about power armor for quite a while, so hopefully I don't run out of material too fast. There's so many things I'd love to put out there and get some feedback from the power armor and exoskeleton building community. Maybe we can start up a regular dialogue and we can discuss certain design elements or overarching concepts and maybe compare notes and see where everybody is at. Now, my emphasis for this is not really to focus on science fiction power armor. Granted, if it wasn't for Starship Troopers, we probably wouldn't have power armor as a concept. That's Starship Troopers the book, not the movie. Though I think there's some newer ones that might have power armor in it. I digress. So, we can discuss... in the future we might end up discussing... who am I kidding? We most definitely will end up discussing suits of power armor from movies and video games and exoskeletons from movies and video games. But that's not where I really want to have the emphasis of this podcast. I want to have this podcast be more emphasis on the real thing. And we can look at maybe some of those fictional suits of power armor and exoskeletons and, have a look at them and see how practical or realistic they are, and maybe I could give my opinion on some of them. But that's not quite the direction I want to be going just yet. Now, some of you might not know who I am. I'm an armorer. I've been working on armor for about 7 years now, off and on. I've had periods where I haven't done very much armoring. I went off and tried to learn how to make traditional Japanese swords for a while. That chewed up quite a chunk of time. Didn't result in anything too glorious, but it was a learning experience, and it really makes you appreciate the arcane arts that go into those things, but whatever. I do blacksmithing, I make armor, I have a long-running project to make a fully enclosed suit of armor similar to the Henry VIII Field of Cloth of Gold foot combat armor, but also inspired by several other foot combat armors that were fully enclosed that survived from that time period, or fragments of ones that survived from that period. It's a very rare style of plate armor that fully encloses every part of the body, including underneath the armpits, between legs. My armor is not historically accurate. It's Franken armor, and well, it's tech heresy is what it is. I always have to put heresy warnings when I post it up on the United League of Armorers Facebook group. Well, I don't have to warn them that the whole thing is complete heresy, but some people don't realize that and start critiquing its historical accuracy, and yeah, that's neither here nor there for this subject matter. But yeah, I have a bit of experience in creating articulated steel exoskeletons from learning about how people did it historically with plate armor. And there is an enormous amount of knowledge that has been gained, and a lot of it's been lost. Some of it's been rediscovered, but you get what I'm talking about. The amount of research that went into creating fully enclosed steel exoskeletons for suits of armor 500 years ago, that's hundreds of years of research and development. And there's definitely some stuff that they could teach the people who are building it these days. But I am trying to bridge the gap between people who build exoskeletons and power armor from a modern from a modern, how do you say it? I'm trying to bring lessons learnt from plate armor into the exoskeleton and power armor community. I think that we could benefit quite greatly from that. And I run a group on Facebook for power armor research. I can leave a link in the description if you're interested. And I am in contact with several people who are building exoskeletons and suits of power armor, and I've got legitimate exoskeleton companies following me on Instagram. Oh, it's mad. But I know a little bit about this subject, you could say. I do a lot of research. It's kind of an obsession for me at this point, and I fully intend to start working on a functional suit of power armor, or at least semi-powered armor, after my current very advanced, very long-running armor project is finished. Or at least start working on an exoskeleton and integrating it into a suit of armor, a passive exoskeleton. So, yeah, I figured I would really like to start opening up dialogue and maybe put forward things for the community to discuss. And so, figured for this first one, I might start with something more overarching, discuss a large concept. Now, I would like to get into the nitty-gritty, the nuts and bolts, and minute design elements, and discussing concepts like joint articulation and human-machine interfaces and fit and all that kind of stuff. But for this first episode, I'd like to discuss where the technology is currently, or at least the declassified stuff that I can find openly. I'm not going to discuss anything that I can't find sources for. Interpret that how you will. Don't want to reveal anybody's secrets, but yeah, I don't want to reveal anybody's secret little projects that they're working on, or design elements of their little projects that they're working on that they're not happy with me making public. I have friends. Let's just say I have friends who have some interesting hobbies. And by interesting hobbies, I mean building exoskeletons and power armor, but you probably figured that out by now. So, I got a link on Instagram to this article about could we one day see power armor or exoskeletons in military applications. And I'm like, dude, your information is like 17 years out of date. Almost everything that you're predicting could maybe happen has been happening for like over 15 years. It's like they just did a quick Google search, got a bunch of old articles that were monstrously out of date, regurgitated it. I'm like, oh. Because there is so much non-classified information that's freely available on the internet, it is mind-blowing that more people don't know about this kind of stuff. Basically, power armor, military power armor already exists. It just doesn't exist in the more conventional sense. The way it exists in the popular imagination is different to how it exists in the real world. We are seeing the early stages of power armor. It is in its infancy. And it's a very interesting time because over the last 17, 20 years, we can see how the technology has been evolving. There were early unharnessed... let's go really far back. Some of you might know, was it the Handyman? That one from the 60s that was inspired by Starship Troopers. And it was made by General Electric. And it was an absolute monster. It was closer to the autoloader from Aliens, only with giant fists. And it went nowhere because it had a tendency to violently shake around, which is bad if you're on the inside of it, and super powerful, had to be tethered. Fast forward to around the 20 years ago, early thousands. Who was it who brought out that absolute monster that was basically a real world power loader? It was declassified. I can't remember. It's just about 20 years ago. The state of the tech was pretty much, I think, tethered. Basically, humanoid forklifts. You could lift a heavy thing and install it onto an aircraft or something. And, that was that. Fast forward to 17 or so years ago and you get Hulk. HULC. I forget what the acronym stands for. I think that was that Lockheed Martin? No. Was it? I can't remember who designed Hulk, but it was declassified about 15, 16 years ago. And they had started building powered exoskeletons for use for soldiers. And they were moving away from the super strength idea. These were smaller. It was a wearable frame, and it would help take the weight off of a backpack so that soldiers could march or run for much, much longer, but had some battery issues. But it shows a divergence between... It shows an interesting divergence in exoskeleton technology. A lot of people, when they think exoskeletons, they think super strength and basically end up designing human forklifts. Those kinds of exoskeletons do exist in a more mature form these days for industrial applications. There's tons of them. You can go look them up. What can I say? There are tons of them. I really should have made a list of different companies that were using them, because it's quite extensive, and if you're interested in that, just look up industrial exoskeleton. There's tons of stuff out there. Both the heavy powered ones and passively powered ones. Alright. Super strong. Basically, human forklifts. We'll put that in one direction. The military stuff went in more of a, how can we relieve the stress off of soldiers direction. Not super strength, but super endurance. Basically, if you can transfer the load of the backpack and their equipment to the ground so that they don't actually have to carry it, that's great. And that's kind of the direction they were going with. I understand that the United States was getting something like a third of its casualties were from things like back strain, and really wanted to do something about that so that they didn't have so many veterans coming back with severe back pain. And that's the kind of direction they went with, basically just relieving weight from the load that the soldier was carrying. And this is all tied up with the Talos project. And this is the direction that many militaries to this day have gone in. A lot of countries actually have a declassified exoskeleton, military exoskeleton program, and they're all going in this direction. There's actually, I think the Onyx system is, that's Lockheed Martin. I think that's their latest declassified one. It's basically legs. There's some talk they have admitted that they're working on or have started working on a upper body, but I've not seen that declassified. It does seem that that is secret and in the pipeline and is being worked on, and there's a bunch of little goodies that are hinted at in interviews but have not been declassified. But yeah, America's got Onyx. Japan has one that's the same. China has a knockoff that honestly looks a lot more like Hulk, so they're like 15 years behind, but yeah, whatever. Japan's got one, China's got one, America's got one. Russia's got theirs that has actually been used and tested in the field for carrying heavy machinery and computers for clearing mines. That's part of the Ratnik system, and they're doing something very similar to what all of these are doing similar things. But, alright, let's get the list out. US, Russia, Japan, India, Thailand, Vietnam, who else? I feel like there are a bunch of others, but a little scatterbrained. Basically, they're all going with very similar designs for, they want exoskeletons. They're not going for super strength, they're going for load redistribution, so taking the weight of the equipment off of the wearer. And the Onyx also, I believe, is designed to basically take up part of the weight of... No, that was a... No, never mind. Scratch that. I've got confused with a different one. Or have I? Was the Onyx system also meant to, like, reduce the weight of the wearer? Or is that... No, I think that's some of the passive industrial exoskeletons, but yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on with Onyx. It's an interesting little toy. But this is very different to the way power armor exists in the popular perception. The popular perception of power armor is it's a suit. It's a contained unit. Think Fallout. It opens up, the guy gets in. Iron Man opens up, the guy gets in. Halo. I think I don't know. But, all the equipment is all integrated into a singular system. This doesn't really seem to be... okay, it's all integrated into one piece of equipment. Whereas what the real-world versions, especially the American ones, for Talos and... Talos keeps getting cancelled and then rebranded and then cancelled, or I can't. There's the Talos system and all of the other similar programs, and there's the Ratnik system, and what they seem to be doing is it's a system, not a singular piece of technology. It's not a single suit. It's not like a tank. It's a bunch of separate pieces of equipment that work together to provide a system. And if you look at it like that, we technically do have prototype powered armoured systems. in that the exoskeleton is one piece of equipment designed to work with other pieces of body armor. And you look at some of the foreign ballistic suits, like I think some of the Ratnik ones and some of the other experimental prototypes or design concept ones, they've got tons of limb armor, which is less practical unless you don't have to worry about that weight because an exoskeleton is supporting the weight for you. So if we had to put a powered armored system fully covering someone in armor into the field in like 2 years, the way it seems the current technology is going is having the exoskeleton as one piece of technology and the armor is designed to be compatible with it. So this makes a lot of sense because you have a bunch of companies and people working on the armor, and then you have a bunch of people working on the exoskeleton. And if you end up upgrading one, you don't have to automatically upgrade the other. You don't have to throw out an entire suit and start working on another one from the ground up. You get a breakthrough in exoskeleton technology, great, can still use the same plates. You get a breakthrough in armor technology, great, you can still use the same exoskeleton. And also, if the exoskeleton is mostly just used for transit, you can get to where you're going, take the exoskeleton and pack off, and you're covered in armor, and it might be really heavy and encumbering, but you might not be going very far before you put the exoskeleton back on. It's a fatigue management system, and you can do stuff with it on, or you can transit to a place to take it off. But only I don't want to theorize how it will actually be used in the real world because I'm not qualified to do that, and there's no real. We can guess how it might be used. They might wear it through the fight. They might go to where the fighting is, take it off, and fight without it on. I don't know. But that is kind of where the technology seems to be going. Having exoskeleton and armor being separate but compatible systems that are integrated into an overall system. Same with all the gadgets and stuff. It's not like in pick one, Halo. He's got the helmet. It's got all of the special hood systems and stuff. That's another group. Another bunch of people are working on special optics and stuff to go onto weapons. And there's all these different components that are all that would, in the popular perception of a suit of power armor, would all be integrated into the one final product. But the direction the real world seems to be going is that they all end up being their own separate product, but they all come together to form a system, kind of like the Ratnik or the Hulk systems. It's not a singular unit. It's a bunch of units put together. Now, we might maybe one day see it evolve to be more like the video games. Human tank that you just walk into and it's all one integrated system. Don't know. I have not seen anything like that. Outside of the hobbyists, there's a surprising number of people are building power armor as a hobby. I don't know, I feel like I should do that as its own separate video because I would love to be able to bring in some people and discuss their armors, or maybe just get permission to show various people's armors, which might be more appropriate considering how many of them speak Russian and don't seem to speak English, because I do not speak Russian. Please stop sending me messages in Russian. I do not speak Russian. Whatever. Alright, I've rambled on for enough. If there's any subjects you'd like me to talk about in the future for this podcast, and we'll see how this goes. I'm looking forward to your comments. Does anybody think my analysis is inaccurate? Yeah, whatever. Alright, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this little discussion about, where the technology is and where it seems to be going as a overall concept. Maybe we can get into the nuts and bolts of some of these pieces of equipment and the designs. Probably. But, that's for future episodes. Everyone, see yous.